Greetings, dear viewer. In today's information dissemination transmission from the Umbanda New Earth Ashram, I would like to humbly make an attempt to provide some insight, some clarity in the in the subtle realms, the differences between a soul, which is what you truly are, a soul that is currently incarnated within a human genetic vehicle, a physical shell, a human spacesuit, and spirit, and the differences thereof, and why it even really matters. And I'm going to try to stay away from any technical terms, but at some point it is necessary. And one term that I would like to uh, introduce, or rather provide, is atmic, spelled ATMIC. And perhaps you're familiar with the term ATMAN, ATMAN, which is a word, Sanskrit word from the Vedic sciences, atman, referring to identifying your eternal energetic aspect, that immortal spiritual aspect of who you truly are, that is immortal and never dies and continues on its journey. And the soul is that aspect that is more aligned closer down in the realm of your physicality, but it is your emotional experiences, your desires. It is less spiritual, more caught up with your identity and your physicality and all those lessons and karmas that go along with that. And the atmic, the spirit plane, that essence, that fractal of source, that divinity, that spark of divinity, that God particle that powers all of this, that is ultimately your true essence. But because of separation, because of the game of duality and all of this, you are more closely identified, your consciousness is more closely identified with your soul and your body. And the spirit, the atman, the atmic aspect is less realized. But for expansion of consciousness, and I want to say this, I want to say, and I believe that is vitally important for survival, to begin to recognize and identify with your spirit aspect, to sort of be able to power through and put the pedal to the metal in these days of tribulation and testing and whatnot, because the soul and the body are under constant attack. It is an astral combat, and the more that you kind of get lost in all that or identify with that, the more you're susceptible to that. But if you are identified with spirit, your atman, you begin to understand that as willpower. That is where your will and power truly come from. And the more you're identified with your own power, well, the more successful you'll be in your soul path. And so to focus on the spirit, your source aspect, your source fractal, this is your core function, your spiritual will, your cosmic authority, which is in alignment with source. And the more that you are in alignment with source, the more bliss, the more joy, the more success you will experience. And the dominant energy that you perceive, that you experience, that you channel, that you express, the more that you're in line with your source spirit, is pure intent. The more clarity, the more unshakable the more unshakable spiritual power that you experience. You have command of consciousness, the ability to manifest through alignment with divine law and transcendence of desire and emotion. The less susceptible or imprisoned by your desires and emotions you will be. And the more you're able to maintain absolute clarity and selflessness, and any attachment to ego, you realize that any attachment to your ego diminishes your power of spirit. And you improve upon, you strengthen this spirit, this power of spirit through willful meditation, through disciplined action, through direct communication with your higher self, your spiritual self. The more you engage in activities that channel this spirit, this power, and the more mastery of mind and soul, because the mind is ultimately just a tool similar to the body, and the goal being absolute sovereignty of the soul and the illusion of the physical body, where all of the, you turn basically, you begin to, at this point, you begin to understand the separation between the physicality and your energetic, your eternal energetic aspect. And the true liberation of yourself is beginning to realize the sovereignty of your soul and the energetic aspect. And the escape from all of this that is taking place in our dimension with technological domination is ultimately it's spiritual. Because in Daniel, in the book of Daniel, it says in chapter 12, verse 3, and those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky above, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. The wise are those who recognize this dynamic of the imprisonment of the soul, of the spirit within physical matter, and the continued imprisonment through technological means of this age. And so, but the more that you're able to shift your attention and focus from your physical soul to your spirit, the more willpower that you'll be able to have in this world, and the more that you'll be able to be successful. So the physical, the astral, which is your emotional, the mental progression to spiritual, and to ultimately atmic. This is a progression from matter, emotion, thought, unity to will and power. And that is ultimately what your success revolves around. And each stage, mastery requires detachment from the lower planes, from the previous plane. Your emotions don't hold as much power as they did before you began to identify with your spirit and alignment with your higher purpose. Because the astral plane and all that tempts you, the seeker, with desire. The mental plane, the prison, is knowledge, being more knowledgeable, being spiritual ego. But ultimately, the atmic plane tests your will. Can you act in perfect alignment with divine purpose without ego interference? And so, but ultimately, I believe the more that you are able to identify with your will, and if you're looking at this diagram here, this photo, the will has this red color, which can be associated with your root, with your survival, with your material, but the will, and so that is what in the Judeo-Christian understanding, Satan, the adversary, a lot of times people lose this battle already because they're caught up in the red survival energy. But you see that when the will becomes freed from that and it turns towards the spirit realm, that is when you begin to expand and hold power in these lower three worlds. You begin to channel God's divine purpose. You become in alignment with the Christ, the supreme commander Christ, Yeshua, commander of the light forces, and the intention to manifest heaven upon earth. Namaste, namaskaram.